to STIHL Incorporated's Chainsaw Safety, Maintenance, and Operation. This program has been developed to give chainsaw operators the basic information needed to properly and safely use a chainsaw. Although this program will cover a wide variety of subjects, STIHL always recommends that before you operate your chainsaw, read and fully understand your owner's manual. This manual will cover the important items that will be specific to your chainsaw's design, features, and operation. Regardless of whether it's before you use your chainsaw, while you're working with your chainsaw, or after you've finished your work, inspection and maintenance are critical to not only the chainsaw's mechanical integrity, but also your chainsaw's ability to function properly and safely. Most owner's manuals will have a section with a maintenance chart detailing the types of maintenance you should perform and at what intervals. In your STIHL manual, this section will cover the basic inspection and maintenance that you must perform to keep your STIHL chainsaw in top shape. If you are unable to perform any of these functions for any reason, return your chainsaw to an authorized dealer to have the inspection and maintenance performed before you use your chainsaw. Performing an inspection and performing proper maintenance of your chainsaw and its components prior to using your saw will result in a more productive and safer cutting experience. Always make sure that you have turned off the engine, the chain is stopped, and the muffler is cool before refueling, making adjustments, performing maintenance or repairs, changing the saw chain, or cleaning the saw. And never attempt any maintenance or repair work not described in your owner's manual. Have those items taken care of by your authorized dealer. First, check the fasteners on your chainsaw, making sure they are snug. Retighten any loose fasteners and replace any that may be missing or damaged. Check the AV system and that all of the buffers are in place and functioning properly. Replace damaged, broken, or excessively worn buffers immediately. They may result in loss of control of your chainsaw. A sponginess in the feel of the saw, increased vibration, or noticeable bottoming during normal operation may indicate damage, breakage, or excessive wear. And if replacement is necessary, always replace the buffers in sets. Check your air filter often. There are several different types and designs of air filters, and if yours is dirty, clean the filter according to the manufacturer's directions in the owner's manual, or replace the filter if necessary. Most filters can be cleaned temporarily by simply tapping them on a log, for instance, releasing the heavier particles that have built up on the filter. A tip when accessing your air filter: always close the choke on your carburetor before removing the air filter. This will block sawdust or dirt from accidentally falling into the throat of the carburetor. Occasionally, you will need to inspect your fuel filter. Be cautious not to do this around any open flames or other sources of ignition, as fumes from the tank are very flammable. Clean or replace the fuel filter as necessary according to your owner's manual. Make sure that the chain on your saw does not rotate on the bar when the saw is at idle. If the chain moves when the saw is idling, you must adjust the saw's idle using the proper adjustment screw on the carburetor. Check your owner's manual for more detailed information on your saw's idle screw placement and adjustment procedure. If you cannot get the chain to stop rotating at idle, take the saw to your authorized dealer for the necessary adjustments or repairs before using your saw. Check your muffler and spark arrestor according to your manual's maintenance schedule. If you find that the spark arrestor is clogged or dirty, clean the part or replace it. Operating your saw with a clogged spark arrestor can cause serious damage to your saw's engine. And never operate your chainsaw without the spark arrestor, as the sparks from the muffler can easily start a fire. The bar, chain, and sprocket will require frequent inspection and upkeep, and are some of the highest maintenance components of your chainsaw. There are two types of sprockets commonly used on chainsaws today: rim-type sprockets and spur sprockets. Sprockets will wear as the saw is used and will require replacement. A good rule of thumb for replacement is to install a new sprocket after every 2 chains that you wear out. Here is a new unworn rim sprocket, and this is a rim sprocket with considerable wear that should be replaced. This is a spur-type sprocket with no wear, and one that is worn and should be replaced as well. The method for replacing your sprocket will depend on the mounting design used on your chainsaw. On most STIHL models, STIHL uses an outboard mount design that is very easy to service, even in the field. Simply remove the E-clip and the washer, and the rim slips off the clutch drum, and the drum and bearing will now slide off the crankshaft. Now you can easily clean your parts and reinstall them, making sure to add a slight amount of high-temperature grease to the needle bearing and crankshaft. When reinstalling the drum on your STIHL saw, rotate it about 1 turn to make sure that you've engaged the oil pump drive. Slip on the rim and reinstall the washer and E-clip. Other styles may require the removal of the clutch first with special tools to access the sprocket for maintenance. Check your owner's manual for the procedure to properly replace your sprocket. Your saw chain will require sharpening. The frequency for sharpening your chain will depend on several factors, such as whether or not you have let the chain come into contact with the ground or any other foreign object, the type of wood you are cutting, the amount of dirt or foreign objects that can be embedded in the wood. Here, for example, is where a barbed wire fence has been absorbed by a tree through years of growth. And your chain can reach speeds up to 45 miles per hour, and if it comes into contact with the ground for just a split second, that can be more than enough to dull the chain to the point that it will require immediate sharpening. Even a standing tree will have a certain amount of dirt embedded into its bark from wind-blown debris that will dull your chain over time. One good rule of thumb to make sure your chain remains sharp and in good condition is to file the chain with a few light strokes on each tooth using a file and guide each time you refuel, even if you think it's still sharp. You can determine the chain's condition by physically inspecting the cutter edges for rough or worn spots. Also, be sure to inspect the chain links and rivets for wear, cracks, or damage. If any part of your chain is cracked, worn, or damaged, you should replace it immediately and have the damaged chain inspected and repaired if possible by your authorized dealer. When operating your chainsaw, there are certain things you can look for that will indicate the condition of your chain. When the chain is sharpened properly, it will produce large, well-defined chips from the cut, as seen here. When a chain isn't sharpened properly or is dull, it will produce a finely granulated form of powdery sawdust like this. Looking at the sawdust is a good first indication of the condition of your chain. In operation, your chainsaw is designed to cut effortlessly and with very little pressure applied by the operator. If you find that you have to apply excess pressure to the saw in order for it to cut, the chain is most likely dull. Or you may have a problem with your bar and chain lubrication system. Often when you find that you have to apply a lot of pressure to make the chainsaw cut, you will also see smoke coming off the tip of the bar, another good indication of the chain's condition or a lubrication problem. If these conditions occur, you may need to sharpen the chain immediately or replace it, and check the bar and chain lubrication system. To continue cutting with a dull chain or a lack of bar and chain lubricant will cause operator fatigue and a high rate of wear on critical parts of your chainsaw. Another indicator to look for is if your chainsaw tends to drift right or left in the cut. This would indicate that the angles on your chain have been sharpened incorrectly and will need to be resharpened. Or it could mean that your bar rails have worn unevenly. This can also cause operator fatigue, unsafe operating conditions, or damage to your chainsaw. With the right tools and instruction, you can maintain your STIHL bar, chain, and sprocket with confidence. Let's look at how you would perform this service in the field. When you're ready to service the bar and chain, pick a large flat area to perform the work, such as the tailgate of a pickup truck. Remember, the chain has sharp edges, so always be sure to wear sturdy work gloves when handling the bar and chain. With the chainsaw engine turned off and the muffler cooled down and the chain brake released, use your bar wrench to loosen and remove the nuts on the chain sprocket cover. Remove the cover, release the bar from the chain tensioner's adjustment pin, slide the bar back, and remove the chain and the bar. Check your sprocket and drum for wear and make sure they rotate freely. If the sprocket is significantly worn, you should replace it. At this point, it's a good idea to clean away the sawdust and debris that is built up on the saw with a rag. Even an old toothbrush can come in handy for this task. Clean the inside portion of the cover around the clutch drum area, taking special care to clean thoroughly around the automatic chain oiler's discharge area, not allowing anything to become lodged in the portal. Your bar will also need to be checked and maintained. If your bar has a roller or sprocket nose, make sure that the roller or sprocket nose rotates freely. Some bars may have a grease hole at the tip that will require greasing periodically. Check your owner's manual for the maintenance procedure for your chainsaw's guide bar. With a rag, wipe the bar down, removing any debris. With a bar groove cleaning tool, like the one shown here, starting from the tip of the bar, remove the debris that's become impacted in the bar rails. And remember to always wear gloves when handling your bar, as the bar rails can become very sharp as they become worn. The rearward end of the bar will have a series of holes and slots. These are the oil inlet hole, the chain tensioner's adjustment pin hole, and the bar stud slot. It is extremely important that these areas are completely free from dirt and impacted debris. Through wear, you may find that your bar rails will form a rolled over edge. If this occurs, with a flat file, smooth the edges down, again making sure to wear gloves during the process. If the bar is severely worn, you will need to replace it. Now that your components are cleaned, reinstall the guide bar on the saw. First, turn the chain tensioner's adjustment screw counterclockwise, allowing the pin to move back towards the sprocket. This will allow slack in the chain, making it easier to install. When installing your guide bar, always place the bar with the opposite side up from when you last took it off. Doing so, you will displace the wear more evenly on both sides of the bar, resulting in a longer service life. Place your bar over the bar studs, sliding it as far back as you can. Install the chain on the bar, making certain the cutting edge of the chain will rotate in a clockwise direction around the bar when looking at it from the sprocket side. Once the chain is placed on the bar, and the drivers are properly engaged with the sprocket, position the bar where the chain tensioner adjustment pin lines up with the proper hole in the guide bar. Reinstall the chain sprocket cover and the nuts, but only finger tight, as you will need movement in the guide bar to adjust the chain. The bar will have slight up and down play. To adjust your chain properly, turn the adjusting screw tensioning the chain to the point where it sits firmly against the bottom rail of the bar, but not so tight that the chain won't rotate freely around the bar. Continue to hold the tip of the bar up and tighten the nuts on the cover. Double-check your work by pulling down on the chain and letting it snap back, and by rotating the chain around the bar. If the chain doesn't snap back snugly against the bottom rail, you will need to tighten it some more. And if it won't rotate freely around the guide bar by hand, you have over-tightened the chain and will need to loosen it slightly. Repeat the adjustment process until the proper chain tension has been achieved. As the chain gets hot, it will stretch, as well as by wear through use. Constantly keep an eye on your chain's adjustment when working with the saw. If you see that it's loose, turn the saw off, let the muffler cool down, disengage the chain brake, and make the necessary adjustments. And remember, even a dull chain can be sharp enough to cut you, so always wear gloves when handling the chain or making adjustments. A loose chain can cause serious damage to your saw, and if loose enough, it can even come off the bar, possibly causing serious injury to the operator. If your chain appears to be sticking to the bar or will not rotate smoothly when you accelerate the saw, turn off the saw and check to see if you have bar and chain oil in the bar and chain oil reservoir. You can check to see if your oiler is working by holding the tip of the guide bar near a fresh cut piece of wood, taking extreme precaution not to let the tip of the bar touch the wood, and accelerating the saw with the chain brake disengaged. If the oiler is working, you will see a fine film of oil that will appear on the wood. If you have sufficient bar and chain oil, and your oiler is working properly, but the chain still will not rotate, you should take the saw to your nearest authorized dealer for the necessary repairs. We hope that this program will help make your chainsaw cutting experience a safer and more enjoyable one. For further information about your STIHL chainsaw, see your authorized STIHL dealer. For more information on STIHL, please see our website at stihlusa.com or phone us at 1-800-GO-STIHL.